Emotional affair, as I now realize, but I was high at the time. My ex-husband suspected something was wrong with me. We had a furious dispute over it, which I feel I began. He moved to kiss me and I subconsciously produced a horrified expression. It wasn't directed at my ex. I was thinking about another man as my husband leaned in, and I was dissatisfied with the whole situation. At least that is what I tell myself. A week later, I asked the new boss to meet me in a cafe so we could discuss. I was about to beg him to leave me alone and that I couldn't do this, but he kissed me first, and my thoughts went blank. That marked the beginning of our 6-month affair. During that period, I did things with this man that my ex-husband had long desired. I was more enthusiastic, willing, and usually in the mood. I think it was because it was something new. During this time, my ex and I continued to have sex, albeit less regularly. I started pushing him away, nitpicking his minor habits and even criticizing him. I'm ashamed of how I handled him at the time. I only understood what I was doing when my brother came to visit and informed me that my ex had confided in him. My ex was despondent and contemplating divorce, claiming that he no longer loved me and that he was beginning to lose interest in me. That brought me out of it. So I immediately called it off, quit my job, and promised myself that I would make my husband feel loved and cherished. I was going to change this. If possible, I would be a better wife. My affair partner, arrived at my residence with a package of office supplies from my desk, which I had ordered to be shipped. We spoke. He wanted to know what he had done wrong, and I told him I needed to work on my marriage. I told him to leave, but he wanted one final chance. I told him no, but he begged and pleaded, and like a fool, I gave in. We went into the guest room and started fighting. I'm not sure how long we were doing this, but when he was on top of me, I felt him violently snap back, and there was a huge crash. I sat up, and my ex looked at me. My AP was on the floor, and there was a big hole in the wall. I tried to talk to my ex, but his eyes were bloodshot. His lips trembled as tears streamed down his cheeks. I could tell he was in a lot of agony, and I felt disgusted. I witnessed my AP stand up and try to leave. My ex looked at him, and my AP told him that if he knew what was best for him, he'd back off. So my ex assaulted him. I yelled and cried for my ex to stop. Desperate, I jumped on his back, causing me to be slammed to the ground. Everything became blurry for a time. Sentences sounded muffled, but when I awoke, my ex had my AP by his side and was on the phone. All I could do was stare at my AP's injured face and the blood and teeth on the floor next to him. There was a loud bang on the door, and I saw my ex put the phone on speaker, carefully set it on the floor, drop to his knees, and place his hands on the back of his head. The door opened and the police entered and handcuffed him. Paramedics came shortly later. I quickly found that he had phoned 911 himself. At the hospital, everything went terribly wrong. My father didn't say anything to me, he just stared at me with shame. My brother was yelling at me, looking upset and questioning how I could have done that to my ex. My mother was comforting me, telling me everything will be fine, which prompted my father to yell at her. His family was infuriated. His sisters threatened me, and his parents seemed to wish to put me to an early grave. I approached my children, but they refused to speak with me. My sons wouldn't even look at me. My AP was severely damaged and required reconstructive surgery on his face. My ex had nearly crushed it. At the hospital, a woman entered my room and immediately attacked me. My brother grabbed her away from me and it turned out she was my AP's wife. I didn't realize he was married. He never wore a ring and never said anything. It made me feel even worse. Prior to the trial, my boys stayed with their grandparents on my husband's side, while my girls refused to speak with me. My ex did not want to see me either. I attempted to visit him at the county jail, but was forbidden. My brother made sure my ex went to the correctional facility where he worked so he could monitor him. When I requested my brother to deliver a message for me, he told me to go to hell. During the trial, I saw my ex for the first time in months. He gazed at me with rage, and it hurt more than I could have imagined. He had always looked at me with love, even while we were fighting. He always looked at me with love, but throughout the trial, it was hatred. I had to excuse myself for crying in the restroom. As the days passed, I was compelled to recount my affair in full for everyone to hear. When I informed them how long it had lasted, my ex looked devastated, and my father stood up and exited the courtroom. During my ex's testimony, I discovered that he had returned home to surprise me with lunch and a weekend trip for 2 to the Catskills. He had planned a romantic retreat, but as we walked in, he responded. He claimed that when the AP told him to step aside, he snapped and pummeled him, stopping only after he flung me off his back. He instantly called 911, and we heard the recording in court. Hearing the misery in his voice and sobbing as he did everything the operator told him to do was heartbreaking. The AP couldn't speak verbally and was extremely drugged, so they utilized photographs of him, which made me sick because I was to blame for everything. My ex broke his eye socket, cheekbones and jaw. They claimed there were bone fragments that were too small to piece together. My ex was charged with a third-degree felony and sentenced to 7 years in prison, causing my kids to yell and protest, as well as my girls and his family to let out a howl that still haunts me today. The first 3 months were terrible. My AP's soon-to-be ex-wife sued me for affection-based alienation. My ex has filed for divorce. My eldest son has moved out. My other kid remained in his room, and my twins were rebelling fiercely. My ex-sisters-in-law attacked me in the middle of Price Chopper. When I tried to apologize to his mother, she spat in my face. My father and brother refused to speak with me. Eventually, I needed to locate a new job. There was no money coming in, and I nearly depleted my funds, but I was essentially blacklisted in my sector. It was negative publicity for the accounting firm, so I started working in retail and became a seasonal H&R Block adjuster during the tax season. I almost lost my house. My ex refused to let me visit him, and each letter I sent was returned. Crying in the shower became practically a daily habit. My parents almost split up because my mother was continually defending me. My brother refused to accept me, and my pals, whom I'd known since elementary school, were divided. I soon began to have ideas of terminating things, of packing my goods and going. The guilt was so heavy. I eventually saw a therapist, who admonished me for being too familiar with my ex. I no longer considered him a spouse, instead, I saw him as a friend with perks, and I treated him accordingly. I did, and she was right. I became too comfortable with him. I regarded him as a comrade, but he saw me as his wife, the mother of his children, the woman he adored and wanted. I took him for granted. Almost a year passed, and my children remained silent. When I served dinner, they would take their meal and disappear to their rooms, not even looking at me. I had a few meltdowns, imploring them to say anything to me, but nothing happened. My brother was married and I was not invited, but my children were. I continued to try to visit my ex, hoping that he had put me on the visitor list, but I was always turned down. My letters were still getting returned. It left me terribly depressed, and I felt I deserved it. Then, unexpectedly, my brother showed up. I was both surprised and pleased to see him, as it was the first time he had visited my house since the trial. He just came to reprimand me, informing me that my ex was in the hospital after being stabbed. An inmate attempted to sexually abuse him in his cell, which resulted in my ex being stabbed in the stomach and the inmate's spine breaking. My brother yelled at me, "You did this?" before returning to his truck. I grieved for days thereafter because he was correct. I did this. I attempted to visit my ex in the infirmary, but was forbidden. For 4 more years, I attempted to communicate with him and continued to write letters, but they were returned. Fortunately, our children visited their father frequently, which is how I heard he had been placed in protective custody by my brother after the attack. My eldest son graduated from the same college as my ex and majored in the same field. He only called his siblings. He never wanted to talk to me. He never comes to our place for the holidays, only to his grandparents. My other son followed suit, attending the same institution and refusing to call me. My twins were difficult to deal with, but they went to see their father once a week, which helped them feel better. When they became too disobedient, their uncle would punish them, but my brother and I continued to communicate sparingly. I tried to visit his wife after they had their first child, but I was ordered to leave. My mother kept me updated on their life, but my father still refused to acknowledge me. Then, at the start of May this year, my children were joyful, and my sons returned home. I had no idea why and it didn't matter. They were home. For 4 months my children were present and I tried everything I could to express my regret, but I was mostly ignored. Still, they were talking to me, and it made me very glad to have a conversation with them and learn about their life. My eldest had been dating a woman for over a year, my second-born was on a college track team, and my girls started talking to me again. I hated myself even more for what I had done to them. It was wonderful to see them smiling, joking and eating supper together again. At the end of August I was preparing for the twins' first day of senior year, which also coincided with their 18th birthday. I conveyed my enthusiasm for their birthday party and told them what I planned to accomplish. My girls immediately asked if we could reschedule. This confused me because I believed we were improving. When I inquired why, one of them explained, "Because Dad is throwing us a party, and I don't want you near him." That comment stunned me. I asked when their father was released and they claimed he was let out at the end of April for good behavior. I cried because he was gone, And it shattered me even more. They were more present because he was gone.